Happy Monday night to everybody who is out and about on these YouTube streets. I hope you guys are doing well. My name is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. You know, I've done a lot of videos lately, and they've been from pretty much all over. As most of you know, I live in Texas, so Texas crime is no different than any other crime in the rest of the U.S. It just happens in a bigger area. This one has been going on for a long time. It's called the Texas Killing Fields. So I thought I'd start and give my audience a little bit of history because I am thinking about taking a trip down there this weekend and doing some live footage, maybe doing a live from there. It's about 6 hours away, 7 hours away, so it'll be a good little kind of reprieve to get away from the homestead for a while. Like I said, hope you guys are doing well. Once again, my name is 12 Gauge. I am your host. So let me start this video and give you a little bit of background about the killing fields, and then we'll talk about it. I'll give you more information. I know people want to talk about other things, but honestly, let me clear it up really quick. No, Jack Showalter was not Papa Rogers. There you go. Now we can move on. Let me go ahead and get this video started. And here we go.
The body of Tim Miller's daughter, Laura, is one of four that turned up in this League City field between 1983 and 1991.
Why don't we want to solve this? This is a big deal here.
It was kind of a Wild West. There was a lot of good old boys type stuff going on.
I invented drive-by shootings in Dickinson, Texas. Yes, I fought Clyde Hendrick.
Wrong place, wrong time. You know, run into the devil sometimes.
Okay, this area is down by the tip of Texas. It is down by heading toward Galveston, Houston area. This is on I-45 heading toward Galveston. So I will show you on a map exactly where it's at here in a little while. To hang in there, let's take this ride.
Now we really have a reason for this to be called the damn killing fields. It was crazy. I don't know if I really can't even put my finger on all the emotions that I was going through.
I have very, very fond memories of being with her. My grandfather was the last person to see her. And she was, "Bye, Daddy." She had helped him cut a limb off a tree. She climbed the tree for him that day and cut the limb down and helped him work in his garden. So they hung out all day together that day. And he told her that, you know, I'm gonna go home and I'll be at Josie's tomorrow. She just said, "I'm going to the store. I'm gonna get a ride." That wasn't uncommon.
But your dad was like, "No, I'll take you. Nothing."
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. You want to ride? No, Dad, I got it. She was spotted using that phone at the convenience.
I want you guys to pay attention to this payphone because it's going to hold significance to at least one more of these murders. And if you don't know what a payphone is, if you're not old enough to have used one back in the day, we used to have a phone that mounted on the wall that you put some change in, or you could even make collect calls directly from the phone and call people anywhere you wanted. We didn't have cell phones back then, so in 1983, this payphone was probably quite popular, and it was located at a gas station, not far away from Calder Road.
Convenience store, according to the clerk. I mean, but all the details were fuzzy back then. There was no surveillance cameras. There wasn't anybody paying attention. She was a regular. So I don't think she stood out that day in any particular way, except she knew the clerk and she saw her on the phone. It was right before Halloween, and we were at my grandparents' house because we always went over there for the holidays. And I remember my mother snapping and saying, "How can you even think about Halloween when we haven't heard from Edie?" I think we were just grasping at trying to have some level of normalcy because my grandparents were so distraught. I mean, they were just beside themselves with worry. I'm Nina Yeager, and I'm Edie's niece, the first victim of the killing fields in Lake City, Texas. She said, "If anything ever happens to me, go to the Lake City police because I have friends there." And unfortunately, that didn't seem to be the truth.
they think that maybe she just ran off with somebody.
Well, that's what they wanted to tell us. She didn't want to be found. She's an adult. She just went.
You know, I've spoke on that in prior investigative videos that I've shown about how the police are so quick to put that on a grown up. You know, they're grown. They can run off and not be found if they don't want. There's nothing suspicious about that. Which I understand that. But you also understand that many people who are close to these individuals know their patterns in life. And they know if they have a history of running off or not.
Missing on her own, and she didn't want us looking for her. Don't put out flyers. Don't go to the media. That was a big one.
Why?
You know, Robert, if I had the answer to that, it would be amazing. as you can imagine. I mean, it fractured us. It was something missing after that. Not just her physically, but just the light in my grandparents' eyes. It's like it got snuffed out when they found her remains. There was no hope of her coming back. And she had a beautiful 5-year-old daughter that they had to soldier up and, take care of. But nothing was ever the same. Holidays, Christmas, Easter, around when she was found, her birthday was April 30th. It was never the same again after that. And I wonder how differently all of our lives would have been.
September 10th, 1984, and I'll never ever forget that day. I was getting ready to walk out the door to go Calder Drive in Main Street. She worked on Calder Center Shop Center, and Laura said, "Dad, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure, sis. What's on your mind?" And she said, "Is it okay if Vernon comes over tonight?" Which Vernon was Laura's boyfriend. And I said, "I believe that'd be a good idea. We just moved in this house from Dickinson." Tim Miller, Laura Miller's father, and also founder director of Texas EquiSearch.
And if that name sounds familiar, he has been a popular person that has found multitudes of missing people, missing kids. He was called out on the Sebastian Rogers case, and he was one of the search teams. He's very, very proficient in what he does, and he's never stopped looking for his daughter. This is Miller and his family moved to League City 2 days prior to Laura's disappearance. 2 days. Can you imagine that? Moving to a new place, 2 days later, your daughter goes missing and nobody knows nothing.
And of course, the day you move in, your phone wasn't hooked up. It normally took 3 or 4 days way back then. There was actually a payphone at a convenience store right at the end of 517 and Hobbs Road, which is maybe a half mile away from the house. So I said, "But when Mom comes home for lunch break, have her take you down to the payphone and call Vernon and say, Dad says it's okay to come over." So anyhow, her mother took her there, and Laura's talking on the phone and stuff, and I guess her mom says, "Laura, hurry up. I'm going to be late going back to work." And Laura says, "Mom, I just want to talk to Vernon a little bit longer." And she said, "All right, be careful. See when I get home." Well, Laura's mom got home, and Laura wasn't there. And, of course, she was concerned. We thought there for a moment that maybe Vernon got there a little bit early, and the kids were out walking. Because they'd say, walk. Oh, my God, the kids walked a lot. Then we got a knock on the door, and it was Vern. And we said, "Where's Laura?" And he said, "Well, I don't know. She said I could come over." We panicked at that moment, but again, not to the point that I think Laura was murdered. Laura had a seizure problem. She had to be on her medication twice a day, and we said, "Oh my God," she was walking back from the store. She had a seizure. Somebody took her to the hospital. So we went to Clear Lake Hospital. We went to St. John's Hospital. And no Laura. The next morning, we reported her missing in the Lake City Police Department. And you know what? I'm not out to slander police departments, but I'm just going to tell the truth. And when I reported her missing, I'll never forget this detective literally rolled his eyes at me. And he said, well, you know, y'all just moved from Dickinson to League City. Laura just turned 16. You know, that's a age when they run away. And I said, well, even if that's the case, Laura's in trouble because she has to have her medication twice a day or she'll go into seizures. 2 days later, our phone got hooked up. We went back to League City Police Department, and I said, listen, nobody's seen Laura. Here's our phone number. I said, now I'm really, really concerned. I said, because 5-6 months ago, the body was found somewhere off of Calder Drive. I said, this is a small town. This stuff doesn't happen. I said, would you please tell me where the property's at or please search it? Same detective. And he said, yeah, that girl Heidi, she worked at a bar. Somebody took her out after the bar closed to have sex. She did give up the sex. They murdered her, threw her out. Isolated incident. I'll never forget the words. Isolated incident. And they said, don't talk to Heidi's parents because they're trying to get over Heidi's death. Go home, wait by your phone. Laura's going to be calling. So I went to the police department the next week, went to the next week, went to the next week. The job went to hell. And, you know, life just started turning into shambles.
I mean, how coincidental is that the two girls use the same cell phone or the same payphone, go missing? Same place, same convenience store. The police, his response was, girls run away at that age. You know, even back in 1983 when this was, guess what? They still had incompetent police who thought that every situation was just a logical answer. So they didn't go look. Small town America.
We got a call from the dispatcher that said that two kids on dirt bikes found what they thought was possibly a deceased person. When I got to the scene, I knew immediately it was a human. You know, I could smell the decomposition. Robert Valentine. I'm a former League City police officer. I could tell it was a female, long, dark hair, auburn hair. And I didn't want to get that close. And I just wanted to, again, back off, but I knew what it was. And it was kind of eerie because I'm looking around and I'm wondering what else is out here. I notified the dispatcher and asked for Tom, the other officer, to come by the scene. And when he did, we started securing the location. And there was a point where we just kind of scattered, moved out a wider area. I saw what I thought was possibly some remains, but I wasn't sure because they were in the brush. And I'm looking, and about that time, Tom called out he had found a skull. And I thought, oh, this is another one. What do we got here? I think both of us were somewhat taken back. Like, we weren't expecting this. We were just looking for evidence from the original victim. And boom, we find the second one. And there we backed off and said, okay, that's it. We're not going to touch anything else. Who would have done this? Who came out here? It had to be someone who knew the area or someone who frequented that area, possibly. It was a muddy dirt road at that time that came to a dead end, if you will. Once you pass the scene where the bodies were, part of the oil fields that were still out there. A lot of people would dump trash. Unless you would have gone out there quite often or maybe knew that area, you wouldn't know where it was going. So the thoughts were, we got to secure the scene. We have to make sure that nothing else is disturbed and go forward. We knew at that time, Tom and I were talking, we knew at that time that there had also been another homicide out there previously, and that was Heidi Fye. And I remember looking at the scene and where the three bodies were, it was almost like a direct line, if you will. And I thought that was a little odd. So at that point, we contacted CID. The scene was somewhat secure, but not secured as you would hoped it would have been.
I mean, he said they were found almost side by side, streamlined. So these bodies were fairly close, and they were dumped fairly close together. And as you're going to find out, over time, at least 30 bodies have been dumped in that area. These are the first two that they found. But what was significant to me as I was listening to this is how close that payphone was to this road in this dumping area. It used to be an old oil field lot area, but how close it was to that convenience store, like you said, somebody would have had to know that it was there and how secluded it was to be able to just go back there and do what they did.
That was somewhat disappointing because here we have two bodies now, and they were going to do it the next day. And we had no authority to start doing anything, and we definitely weren't going to touch the scene. I remember we were out there and it was getting dark and there was really nothing being done. If they had someone securing the scene, it was a volunteer person, with League City.
Did they at least rope it off with the crime scene tape? Not even crime scene tape.
When I left, there was no crime scene tape up. There was a person sitting in a lawn chair securing the scene. That was pretty much it.
Reading the Houston Post back then, and on the second page it said remains of two females found in field in League City. We kept reading the article and it said same field Heidi Fye was found in. So we actually took that newspaper to League City Police to say, is there any chance one of these girls could be our daughter? And they did not even have a missing person report on Laura. They just knew she ran away. So then they asked us for some of Laura's clothes, winter clothes, so they could do hair samples. And then they asked us who her dentist was, and we got dental x-rays. And then 3 days later, they called us. We went in there and they said, yes, one of them girls is your daughter, Laura. Now, I thought at that time that if they would have listened to me, if they would have came out here and searched, they would have found Laura's body. She would have been dead, but there may have been some damn evidence. My emotions went just everywhere. Why wouldn't they listen? You know what? I would go out there where Laura's body was found, and I would search this damn property. I wanted to find her little cross around her neck. I wanted to find her clothes. I felt it's obvious there's got to be more bodies out here. I just got obsessed with this damn place.
I mean, honestly, you can't underestimate a father's love, a mother's love for their children. And that's why it's so heart wrenching to hear individuals to trash the parents anytime a crime is committed. Because most of the time, the people that are trashing the parents are parents themselves or their grandparents. And they go along with these narratives, and you're like, just think if something happened to your grandchild or your child, just as it happened to this man's child. 2 days moving into that area, and she was abducted and murdered. 2 days. And he spent the rest of his life, he's still alive, but he spent the rest of his life looking for her killer. And if that doesn't tell you the perseverance of love, I don't know what will.
She was a very distinctive looking young lady, if you will. And I say that because what I noticed right away was a gap between her teeth. And I thought, someone's got to know this girl.
Audrey was always really good about calling her mother on Christmas. She never missed calling her on her birthday. Well, Christmas came and she didn't call. Her mother's birthday is in January 12th. And she didn't get a call. She loved her family. She was very loving towards her family. It was just like she had died that moment. Even though she'd been dead that long and I've been looking for her all that time. I'm Shirley Love. I am Audrey Cook's sister-in-law. She was a daddy's girl. And by the time I came on the scene, she was tomboy. Her dad, they camped, and she liked to go fishing with her dad. She had a motorcycle, dirt bike. She moved to California and was out there for quite some time, maybe a couple of years. And then they came back to Memphis and stayed for a very short period of time. And then that was when they moved to Houston.
She did move with someone.
Yes.
She had a partner.
Yes.
Do you know why she left?
Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
Better life, better job. Yeah, there just wasn't anything in Memphis that she wanted to do. And she has a very adventurous spirit. And so she wanted to see other places, and do things that she never did.
How'd she settle in Houston?
I really don't know. She'd call her mother quite often, but she would call a lot of times wanting money. And of course, her mother would always come through for her against her daddy's approval. Her daddy would always say, "You tell her that I will send her a plane ticket when she's ready to come home and get her life together." So the last communication that she had with her mother was to call for money. Earlier in the week, she had called and she had sent her money, and she'd tell her always to call me when you get it, would wire it. Mm-hmm. And she did. And then later in the same week, she called again, wanting more money. And her mother sent her money again. And she says, now you call me when you get it. And she didn't call.
So, like this story right here about this young lady, it doesn't always mean that people were living a lifestyle in which they did, that they were putting themselves in harm's way. We really don't know a lot about this individual, other than she called her mom and asking for money, and she was an adventurous spirit, right? So that could have been a lot of things back then, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean nefarious or that she had any kind of anything going on that would have caused her death. You know what I mean? So it's interesting that even back then they could trace back to a Western Union receipt on 12/17/85.
When her mother kept not hearing from her, she sent a registered letter to her last address. So she would have to sign for it. And it came back. In 1984 is when he was diagnosed with leukemia. So, and she knew that he was sick, and she was in Houston. And in some of the letters, she would ask her mom, well, how's Philip doing? When he died in 87, it was like, where is she? I mean, we still can't find her to notify her that her brother has died. About a year after that, it was like something is really, it really got under my skin. And her mother, I loved her mother. She loved me like I was theirs. And I could see what it was doing to her. She'd lost her son. She had no idea where her daughter was.
How was the dad?
He stayed busy.
But that was a way of coping.
Yes. They couldn't talk about it much between them. She kept pushing him, to go down there, look for her, try to find her. He says, if she wants to come home, she will. Still not giving a clue that there would be anything that bad. Probably by 89, I had about decided that she had assumed somebody else's identity. She was a Jane Doe somewhere, or she had left the country. Because I had looked high and low for what I could do, the means that I had. I never gave up. I never gave up. When the internet came along, it's no telling. I had my office set up right in there. And sometimes at 1:30 and 2 o'clock in the morning, I would be in there on dial-up, searching, looking. I still...
Oh my God, how many of y'all remember that dial-up sound whenever you used to get on that internet? Do you hear that? You got mail by AOL or whatever you used back in the day, but that dial-up sound was so annoying. Yeah. You got mail.
Had hope of finding where she was and contacting her, and whatever the problem was, to fix it and bring her home. Let her know, that everybody loved her. When I moved her mother out of Memphis to a nursing home close to me so that I could take care of her. We had to clean out the house. And one of the little cedar jewelry box things about that big, I opened it and there was all of Audrey's letters. I was really excited when I found them, simply because I could look at the postmarks, what she was talking about, maybe names that she was, so I could find her. Oh, every address that was on an envelope, I Googled it. I felt like so many times I was so close. I just needed to look a little further. And then I would just, Shirley, you gotta let it go. You know, and I would give up for a little while. Then something would come back and eat at me again, and I would get back on the internet. The detective, I gave her partner's name. I had all the research and stuff that I had done, like where her mail was forwarded. She found the Audrey and her partner, she said they had broken up because of the lifestyle that Audrey had chosen to be in with the drugs and stuff that, you know, she had left. So Audrey wasn't with her anymore. Her mom passed away in 2008. Her dad passed away in 2012.
So they never knew she was found.
No. I always looked in hopes of finding her for them. Of course, I didn't want it to be that way. The way that she was, I wanted to find her and that she would come home. Not in a box.
Two days before my birthday.
I would say that she liked to have fun. That's for sure. We did a lot of board games like backgammon, canasta, that kind of thing. The other thing she loved to do was fish and crab. And I've said that time and time again because it was just a really, really peaceful pastime for her. Whether that would be on the Sabine River on the bank or on Pleasure Island or on the seawall, you could find her there.
Hi, I'm Diane Gonsolin. I am Donna Gonsolin Prudhom's sister.
She loved Janis Joplin, and that was her time. We came up where ZZ Top and Janis Joplin were coming up. The other thing that was the most important would be her children, and that's kind of hard to say.
How many children did Donna have?
She had two, Chad and Brad. They were 12 and 16.
When she disappeared?
When she disappeared. I stayed at Donna's a lot. I babysat my other siblings' kids, but all through high school and all of that, I spent a lot of time with her.
When had you last seen Donna?
Well, this was a different time.
Of course.
There wasn't technology. There were letters written and things like that. The collect call once in a while, that kind of thing. Her entire life, she's been in the Golden Triangle. It wasn't until she moved to Austin, and I want to say it was in 85, 86 time. 87 is when she mailed my mother a picture of her and the boys from Thanksgiving. And they were all very happy. That's what we thought. We thought she was doing well, you know, and she was doing well. But unfortunately, she relapsed. And that's when she brought the boys to Louisiana to their paternal grandparents. So that's where they lived, in Ville Platte, Louisiana. My mother died September of '88, and Donna did not make it in for the funeral. So '89, she went to see the boys, and then she came to see me. A couple of weeks later, I had worked for a dentist for 8 years, and she knew my number to work. And she called me for her birth certificate because she was going to go on vacation to Mexico.
Why you put it in quotes?
Vacation, because we never saw her again. Like, I didn't know if she died in Mexico. All those years, we had nightmares that we don't know. We didn't know where she was, right? So that.
I mean, let me take a moment. I don't know if you viewers have ever experienced any of this, or have ever had a family member that lived kind of the transient lifestyle, you know, from place to place, and you never really kept up with them very long, and you always worried about them, or if they lived a life of addiction or criminal activities or anything like that. But can you imagine back then, before technology really hit off, the only thing you really had was phone calls and letters. You had no real way to keep up with your loved ones. So you would go weeks, months, years, not knowing whether they were alive, whether they were okay. So not hearing from someone really wasn't that big of a deal back then. Because as many people had always stated to me when I was a child, bad news travels fast. So we didn't have the ability to keep tabs on people. So I want to put that into perspective a little bit, because I know some people might be thinking, well, how did they not know where their loved ones were? How were they not able to keep up with them?
That was the last contact with her, was mailing her birth certificate to Bay Area Boulevard, Clear Lake, Texas. And I remember that like it was yesterday. I know when she was moved to Clear Lake, she was moving with friends. I don't know, but she was moving with friends to start a new life. That's what we were left with. There were decades and days and months and nights of nightmares. And fear. My biggest regrets is that my children had to watch me grieve this so much. And I did my best for them not to know and see it, you know, but definitely they did. Chad was in a MVA in 1999, July 1999, and it left him paralyzed from the waist down and the left side, and cognitive impairment pretty seriously. So he was in and out of nursing homes for a decade, and I was his caregiver, overseer. All Chad ever asked for was to find his mama. Even when I say it, I can see him. So whenever we would get there and walk in, he would always say, "Hey, Diane, you find my mama yet?" You know, because Cajun talk really fast, you know, and say, "No, baby, I haven't." So that was really sad to watch, you know, a grown man needing his mother. Fast forward to 2008. He had to have his legs amputated, and his last wish was to find his mother. I was living in Austin, and so I had already had detectives had looked for her off and on over the years. But what was important this time is that I went and spoke with a local investigator that's also the editor of the Examiner newspaper, named Don Dodd. I told him the story, and he looked for any aliases there may have been. There wasn't any brown hair, brown-eyed, missing unidentified women in databases or anything like that. And about 2 weeks later, I went to meet with him, and he said, there's not a trace. There's not a trace. And basically, you have two choices. You can believe that she's remarried and living a good life somewhere, or she's no longer with us. And I said, well, I will never believe that she's having a good life without her children, because she lived for them. That was 2008. And that's also when we lost Chad. So he passed away that year. After that point, I had to put it to rest for my own well-being, for my own mental health. And so for me, she was gone. One of the girls came and said, Miss Diane, your phone's going off, because it was in the office charging. And when I went to go get it, it was my cousin. There was 3 missed calls, I think, and call ASAP. So when I did, I thought maybe something happened to my uncle or my aunt, totally out of nowhere. She said, I just got off the phone with a Detective Tisdale from the League City Police Department. And then I knew what that was. So, my legs fell out, all those years of searching and all of that she was around the corner, basically. She wasn't with us, but she was just that close. I'm going to speak for Brad right now because he can't. He's not here, but I know what he said. He knows she didn't abandon them. So even though this is a tragic, tragic thing, for him, he knew that his mama loved him. She didn't just walk out of their lives.
Forensic genealogy is a fairly new tool in the law enforcement field. It's where you use DNA, but not in the traditional sense. My name is Richardson. I'm a retired special agent with the FBI. League City refused FBI's offer to use forensic genealogy to identify what was then Jane and Janet Doe, Audrey and Donna. And it was about 1.5 years asking for them to use this technique, and they were skeptical of it, didn't want to do it. I think that they wanted to be the one to find their identity without having to use outside help, so they could say, hey, I think there was some of that. Because when the other DNA company hit the brick wall, that's when they said, okay, we'll let you do it. 45 minutes to get Donna identified. The next day, we worked on Audrey Lee Cook. It took 1 hour. And they had been unidentified for 20 plus years, and it took 1 hour and 45 minutes to get them both done. That's a fantastic tool. Part that still bothers me a little bit is Donna's boyfriend or husband at the time that she went missing passed away about 3 or 4 months before we got Donna identified. And had we been able to use this technique 18 months earlier, we could have got a wealth of information. So I'm still a little upset about League City for not using that tool.
The investigation now is hopefully going to just take a whole new turn.
League City Police Lieutenant Michael Buffington says advances in DNA in genealogical research finally led investigators to identifying Cook in Prudhomme decades after their bodies were discovered. Interviews with family helped police find out how the women made it to this area. Now, the public's help is needed in piecing together the last year to year and a half of their lives.
Any little information they have, regardless how small it is, it could mean a lot to us. So I don't want anybody to think that, oh, it probably doesn't mean anything, so I'm not going to call. You know, knowing who Jane and Janet Doe were, that gives us two entirely subsets of people to go interview to find out commonalities between all the victims, and we just haven't hit that pot of gold yet. That's going to be the aha moment for the case.
Did that surprise you?
It did. I really thought that once they were identified that was going to be the final piece to the puzzle, and it hasn't been.
When Donna's
I'm going to show you guys some pictures and the map, you know, that way you guys can get kind of a understanding of the layout of the area. And make sure I position it in the right places. So what do y'all think about that? I'll play part 2 sometime this week, either tomorrow or the next day. So here's the map. And as we're going to find out in probably later episodes, is there's this farm right here. It used to be a riding stable where this individual used to, you know, people used to come out here and ride on this land with horses and stuff like that. And this was his land, okay? And let me give you an overlook of the whole thing. Well, that's not the right address. What is wrong with you? Okay. I can't keep you hanging on that long, huh? No, I'll start playing it here in a minute. I was just seeing how interested y'all were. Well, here is, let me give you an overview of exactly where the bodies were found, because they really didn't go into discussion. The area that where the memorial is right here behind this church. And I'll show you that here in a minute. But actually the bodies were found off these dirt roads over here. This dirt road right here, like here's Irwin Street, the one where I was showing you where the stable is. There's a dirt road that head this way, and the bodies were found I think one right here, and one over here. And this is the field. So that's an overview of it. But for a long time, they thought that the individual that ran those stables was the one who had something to do with this. See, I'm planning on going this weekend, hopefully, and I'm going to go into the memorial area and show you the grave sites, which are right here. I'm probably going to try to go around down that road that I was just showing you to let you see exactly where it goes. It's a sad story. I mean, it's a sad story. And for all purposes, as of today, 2024, they've yet to find the killer or killers. They have yet to find them. They don't know if they're dead. If they're still alive, or what happened. There's actually 4 parts, and it's gonna play a couple of these, I guess. Which one did I just play? Part 1. So, like I said, this is pretty much still a part of an investigation. They did look into this gentleman, kind of like what the case I was just thinking about, where the Delphi, where they thought the individual who owned the land next to where they found the girls, they thought that individual might have done it. I don't know what his name was right offhand, but there's the stables right here. And here's the dirt road, or what used to be the dirt road. Right here. And this is where they were talking about this used to be an old oil field with machinery and stuff. But this is where the girls were found down along this road. As you can tell, it's not far from the stables. And as you can tell, in what year is this? 2022, April 2022, when this was scanned, it probably looked like this on this side of the road. There's not a lot of development, but I'm sure that there's a lot more development now. But let me show you if I can find. And the gas station. This was, I know the gas station's right along. How's everybody doing? Y'all doing all right? As he was talking, this is the street where they had just moved into. I can't really remember what the name of the street was. But I know it's off this in This subdivision is not far from Calder Road. As you can see, here it is right here. And here's where they moved into. This subdivision right here. And here is where the road is, where the girls were found. Here's Irwin Road. And I think the gas station was right. I think it was right here at the end of this road. I dropped the little guy somewhere in the wrong spot. Because there's Hobbs, and then it would have been, because the way he made it sound, it wasn't that far from their housing development. So it would have been on Main Street. But I'll find that and I'll show you where that is. But let me, like I'm saying, here's Hobbs Road, and they lived in this sub area, and here's Calder Road right here. Here's Irwin Street, and here's Calder. It's not far at all. That gas station is up here, right alongside the freeway. Because I know that I Googled it one time, and basically what you do is you just come down the side road and then turn off, and you can hit this area fairly quickly. It's not far from either one of these. So back then, I'm sure this was a lot of vacant land, and she probably rode her bike or she walked over there to the gas station. What was really interesting about this story is both of those two girls lived in the same subdivision, the ones that were found first. Both of those girls lived in the same subdivision. So if that's not kind of creepy, I don't know what is. Okay, I got a map that shows you exactly where the girls were found. That way you don't think I'm making shit up. Not that you'd ever accuse me of that, right? You see it, right? As you can see, there's Irwin Street and there's Calder Drive. There's the memorial and there's the church that I was telling you about. And there's the dirt road that I was showing you. Here's for one of the girls. This is the last girl, the lady Shirley that was talking about her sister. This is where she was found. The cook girl was found here. The 16-year-old was found here. And Heidi Fry was the very first one. So these two were found side by side. So, excuse me. Sorry about that. So you can see where these ladies and young women were found. There's been over 30 bodies found in these fields alone. They didn't map all of them, but these were the ones that started the whole case as far as being an active investigation. And they labeled it the Texas Killing Fields. Also, here's the dirt road that I was telling you about, the entrance. And there's the dirt road. They used to not have a gate, so you could come and go down their road. And if you look at that, there's also some paranormal people that have done kind of like I don't know what you call them. Are they called seances or whatever? When you go into an area where there's been a killing and you try to talk with the dead, they've actually gone down this area in the dark and they've tried to find the areas to talk to the dead. And it was it's quite interesting. This said the disused oil field consists of multiple interconnected dirt tracks. So if I I don't know how it is in other states, but here in Texas, um, you can get fairly anywhere on a horse, on an ATV, side by side. I mean, back then, probably three wheelers, four wheelers. Hit the dirt road, you'd be on the four wheeler with somebody with you, just going to check something out, and then you next thing you know, you have a victim. Here are the first two that were found. I'm tripping out on this because this is my birthday in 1984. Wow, she was found. Or I think she went missing. I'm sorry. I don't really know. October 10th, 1983, September 10th, 1984, December 1985, and July 1991. So, y'all people that do numbers, is the number 10 significant to anything? Okay, and here's the convenience store. See, it's way up here. You could hit the freeway and be off the freeway, come down, and there's Calder Field right there. So it's an easy way to get to the country, so to speak, and dump a body. And these girls were living in the subdivision, two of them. And this is the convenience store they used the payphone at. This is the last one's sister. It says Prudhomme disappeared 6 years after Cook was murdered. She was also found further south than the rest of the victims. In Prudhomme's case, it seems as though the killer used one of those entrances at Calder Field. The entrance on the left runs between a small stream. The marks on the northern bank suggest that it can be traversed by 4x4 trucks and other off-road vehicles. And there's the memorial site that I plan on going to do some video footage on that. And that pretty much gives you the layout of this case. And let me show you part two before y'all get antsy and leave. Is everybody all right? What are y'all talking about? Trans. Are any victims men? No. None of the victims were men. They were all women. As far as my knowledge is, and I don't remember hearing anything about anybody being trans, so I don't know where that came from, but okay, y'all enjoy your conversation. Here we go.
The body of Tim Miller's daughter, Laura, is one of four that turned up in this League City field between 1983 and 1991.
Why don't we want to solve this? This is a big deal here.
It was kind of a Wild West. There was a lot of good old boys type stuff going on.
I invented drive-by shootings in Dickinson, Texas. Yes, I fought Clyde Hedrick.
Wrong place, wrong time. Run into the devil sometimes.
Now we really have a reason for this to be called the damn killing fields.
as you can imagine, I mean, it fractured us. It was something missing after that. Not just her physically, but just the light in my grandparents' eyes. It's like it got snuffed out when they found her remains.
September 10th, 1984, and I'll never ever forget that day.
It was just like she had died that moment. Even though she'd been dead that long and I'd been looking for her all that time.
There were decades and days and months and nights of nightmares and fear.
Are you guys enjoying this? Because I typed this in the chat and YouTube freaking rejected my comment on the stream. So I typed, are y'all enjoying this? Please comment yes or no. Thank you.
Walk up this cross, just like this, and I'd look at that cross, and I'd look at Laura's picture. I'd say, Laura, please don't hate your daddy. I can't come out here anymore. I have to put my life back together. And literally, Robert, I'd be walking away like this, and over my left shoulder, I'd hear this little voice say, Dad, don't quit. It's like, damn you, Laura, what are you talking about?
I can't imagine being there.
When Laura's body was found, one of the things I was so pissed off about is I did everything I knew how to do to keep this little girl alive, and somebody else determined to take her life. Tim Miller, Laura Miller's father, and also founder director of Texas EquuSearch. We came out here and we walked around, and it was all grown up and stuff, and it was an old, basically abandoned oil field. And I don't know how much time we spent out here, and then we see this little path going in somewhere, and walked in there and seen all the flags where Laura's body parts were found. And then only about 60 feet away, we seen another flag and crime scene tape, of course, where then Jane Doe, now known as Audrey Cook, was found. And I remember the anger that set in at that time. I thought at that time that if they would have listened to me, if they would have came out here and searched, they would have found Laura's body. She would have been dead, but there may have been some damn evidence. You just want to believe everything, and the calls I got from psychics and stuff. Oh my God, I'd go all over the place. There was actually an Indian one time that came out here and set up a teepee and stuff. And it was going to get rid of all the evil and find out who killed, the girls and everything. And at that time, I believed that. I came out here, I sat with him, smoked a peace pipe, did all kind of crazy stuff looking back. I lost all faith in the police department. So I was believing in psychics. I was believing in Indians. I was, they don't teach you how to do this in school or anywhere when you got a child that's missing.
How did it affect your marriage?
Oh, Laura's mom and me got divorced 6 months after Laura's body was found. And looking back, there was a lot of struggles in our life because of Laura's physical condition and now mental condition and stuff. And it took a huge strain on the family, a huge strain. And we lost a son by crib death, and I don't know we ever got over that. And then my brother committed suicide just prior to Laura's disappearance. And so there was a lot of losses. There was a lot of grief, and there was a breaking point. Alcohol did a wonderful job for a while. For a while. It's been many, many years since I've had a drink. Laura's body was found February 2nd. February 17th, we had Laura's funeral scheduled. And 2 days prior to that, Rex Fancher, detective, came back to me and he said, listen, is there any way you can just have a memorial service? Because the medical examiner wants to keep Laura's body a little bit longer. He wants to do some work on it, see if we can determine cause of death and stuff. Well, of course, as a father, I said, yeah, I want to know what she died of and stuff. So, yes, we'll do that. I said, how much longer do you think? He said, probably 60 days. And I said, it's not a problem. Well, 60 days came and went. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years and 9 months later, we finally got to get Laura's remains. 3 years and 9 months.
Did they determine what killed her?
No. So there was Laura's mom, Laura's sister, Laura's boyfriend, and me. It was very quiet and private. We buried Laura. We got her little headstone, and Laura finally has her little resting place. I'll never forget, it was November 1989. We finally buried Laura.
Isn't that terrible? You wait all that time for answers. And we have individuals in other crimes act like things should be done at the snap of a hat. Like you snap your fingers, the autopsy should be done in 30 seconds. You should have DNA back. And look how long it took this man to get his stuff. And this was in the early 90s. In 97, he finally emotionally ready to see Laura's autopsy report.
March of 1992, there was another chain of custody where Lake City Police Department has gotten basically all Laura's remains from her shoulders through her hips and sent off in a FedEx box to some college for them to just do research on. And it's like, wait a minute, how can that happen?
You found out that even though you buried your daughter in 1989, the paperwork showed that some of her remains had been sent off to a college for
1992, just research. Then I was looking through some more of the paperwork, and then 2 years later, there's another chain of custody where some more of Laura's remains and her hair was sent off. So I've got this 2 chain of custody papers. I go to League City Police Department now. Rex Fancher is chief of police, and I go in his office. I'm screaming at him. I said, Rex, where the hell's my daughter? Oh, Tim, you buried her. I said, I thought that I did. I said, but I had some paperwork that says something different. They said, well, let us make copies of that. We'll look into it. I'll never forget it was on a Monday. They said, we'll get back to you by Friday. Well, of course, Friday, they didn't get back with me. The next Friday, they did. And then the next week, I got a hold of Lee Hamill, my attorney, and we went to Lake City Police Department, and my attorney said, I'm not saying you're getting sued. I'm not saying you're not. We just want some answers. Well, we sat in there for a good while, and we didn't get any answers.
you did or didn't?
Didn't. And in fact, they didn't even want to talk. And then my attorney said, hey, boys, it looks like we're going to exhume a body. So we exhumed Laura's body.
You did that? Did you get a court order for that or the police?
No, we did it. We did it. Now remember, there's 212 bones in a human body. Guess how many there were? 28 bones. This is the hard part now, Robert. Now, I didn't even believe it was Laura. I was lied to so much. I didn't even believe it was her. I took my own daughter's skull to a dentist and had him do dental x-rays. And yeah, they did determine it was Laura. Then we filed a lawsuit. Went to mediation before we was going to go to court. And then I came up with an agreement. My lawyer didn't want to do it. He wanted to take it to court. I said, listen, I don't want their damn money. I just want Laura's remains.
What was the agreement? What was the
agreement? Was I was walking away. All I want is Laura's remains.
And they agreed to retrieve her remains from the colleges.
They had them back at the ME's office.
So how can that be legal? Like you say, yeah, I want you to do some research on how this happened, and maybe if you can find the killer, and they're able to send the bones and stuff to a university without your knowledge.
So then we get Jeter Funeral Home. We have a chain of custody. They go to the constable's office. They get that body bag with the bones. They go to the medical examiner's office. They get what he's got. They take him up to Dr. Gil King, University of North Texas. My attorney calls me the next week. He said, Tim, we got a brand new problem. I said, Lee, what could that problem be? He said, Laura's got 31 ribs. The human body's only got 24. Well, then I'm furious again. I said, you know what, how in the hell are they ever going to solve this case? Now they got bones mixed together and stuff. How in the hell are they going to do it? So, of course, they got to do DNA and they got to sort everything out and stuff. So then finally we get Laura's remains back. We bury her again.
Who authorized?
I don't know. We could never get an answer. So then they find out those other 7 ribs that was mixed up with Laura. Well, they belong to Audrey Cook.
Audrey was found the same day that they found Laura's remains.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. But they weren't found in the same spot.
60 feet away. Three years ago on a Monday morning, why does all this stuff happen on a Monday? Richard Renison calls me up with the FBI and says, can you come down to my office on Wednesday? morning. And I said, sure. So I'm thinking we got some new information. So I go in his office, and Jack Rhodey and Kevin Petroff's there from the DA's office. And Jack looks at me and says, I don't know how to tell you this except just tell you. And I said, what, Jack? He said, well, they was going through the medical examiner's office. They found some more remains, and those remains belonged to Laura. That's only 3 years ago. I looked at Jack and I said, Jack, you know, in a perfect world, a child's supposed to bury their parent. I said, but unfortunately, there's circumstances once in a while where a parent has to bury their child. I said, do you think it's right? I get to bury my same daughter 3 different times because of all the damn mistakes?
The last time that they found some of Laura's remains, the DA's office here came and met with me, and they knew that I knew Tim pretty well. So I volunteered to be the one to tell him, and oof, it was a tough day. Tough day for Tim. My name is Richard Renison. I'm a retired special agent with the FBI.
There was a shirt that was found beside Laura's body. I didn't know anything about that shirt. Let me tell you when I found out about that shirt. Is after we had Laura's body exhumed, and my attorney under the Open Records Act got all the pictures of crime scene and everything. It's pretty difficult to look through those too. And that's when I seen the picture of the shirt with a tag on it. So I go to League City Police Department. I said, listen, where's this shirt? I said, and I wasn't being ugly. I said, where's this shirt at? I said, 1986, you could not do DNA. I said, today you can. Oh, we don't have no damn shirt. I showed them a picture. Yeah, you do. Where's the shirt? They lost the shirt.
I mean, don't you see why the parents would be so angry at the police? Do you not comprehend how the family would be so freaking angry at the police? Losing evidence that could be ran for evidence. You know? Mixing his daughter's remains with another person's remains. Human error is one thing, but it just sounds like negligence. I could be wrong.
So there's a Western shirt that was found the day that Laura and Audrey Lee Cook were found in the field off Calder Road. It's photographed, and it was photographed, it looks like, back at the police department or the ME's office. That shirt has disappeared. And we don't know if League City's the one who lost it or if it was the ME's office who lost it. League City Police Department was in a different building in 83 than they were in the 90s than they were in the 2000s. So they've moved twice. And so when you move evidence, it can happen. The Galveston County Medical Examiner's Office moved recently, and I think there was some hope that maybe the shirt would turn up when they completely vacated the old building, but it didn't happen.
When they got Audrey's body, he put her in this big vat with boiling water and, from what I understand, kind of like an acid soap solution to go ahead and boil all the skin off of her body to see if there's any stab wounds, this, that, or the other. Instead, why in the hell didn't they x-ray her? Well, when they was cleaning out the vat, they heard something rolling around, and it was a Federal .22 long rifle bullet. So now when they get that bullet, they send it off to ballistics. Well, the kind of acid soap solution stuff destroyed the bullet, so they couldn't do ballistics on it. Why in the hell wasn't she x-rayed first
The bullet wasn't there before they put Audrey in there, and the bullet was there after. So obviously came from somewhere in her body or on her body. And but that also, I believe that process ruled out some ballistics testing that could have been done.
She was probably 5'6", 5'7", and she might have weighed 120 pounds. So she was tall, but she could hold her own. She would, if it had been where she could have fought somebody that was going to hurt her, she would have. I know her well enough to know that. I'm Shirley Love. I am Audrey Cook's sister-in-law. The coroner's report, I asked, where's the evidence? The fingernails were clipped. They're not to be found. That's frustrating because of the DNA that we can have now. If those could be found, that's frustrating as a family. It's not going to bring her back, but just for somebody to pay for what they did.
The day before her funeral, the funeral director, who was a close family friend and had taken care of my oldest sister, he actually came and picked me up. He said the day before I went to finalize the program, and he said, darling, I'm not going to be able to cremate your sister. And I said, what? And she's got 4 or 5 different death certificates, all saying something different. One even said a car wreck. So he said, I can't cremate her and I can't authorize this till I get a valid death certificate. There were 5 death certificates, all saying something different. And I found that out the day before her funeral.
What?
Is this your first time to hear this?
Yes, ma'am. Was that coming from the Galveston County Medical Examiner?
I said, we're having a funeral tomorrow. I've been waiting on this for 30 years. And he said, oh yeah, pick out the urn. So that's what we did. But what I can say to you, it was just like her dying all over again. Every single one of those calls, every single one of those events, when you wait a whole year for a death certificate, that's the final closure.
What did the final death certificate say?
A homicide.
A lot of bad luck in this case. It's unfortunate. It really is. And that's such an understatement. To say it's unfortunate, it's tragic.
Bad luck.
When I'd come out here, I seen Heidi's headstone over there. And I would go over by Heidi's headstone and stuff. And one day I came out of here and was putting little trinkets and stuff on Laura's headstone. And I seen this family over there. And I was real reluctant to go talk to them because I remember Lake City Police said, don't talk to Heidi's parents. And finally I got the courage up and I walked over there and I said, Mr. Villarreal, you're Heidi's dad. Let me introduce myself. And he said, no, you're Mr. Miller. You're Laura's dad. And I said, yes. He said, I don't know if it's appropriate or not to talk to you because Lake City Police Department said don't talk to you. He said, Mr. Miller, Lake City Police Department told me not to talk to you. It's the first time we met with right here
November 11, 1984. I called the police and I asked to talk to Gibson or to Pat. Since they haven't called me, I have to just keep calling them. I know I'm a pest, but I can't help it. I was a pest before. I'm going to continue being a pest until I find out.
That was my grandfather. He was all about documenting things. He just was always journaling, and he was always felt like he needed to just record things. Day one, since she went missing, he was calling around, trying to locate people, trying to find friends. And he'd write down his notes. But because he had previously had a stroke, he was afraid he wouldn't remember everything, so he could tell the police. So he would go to the recorder, and then he would talk to the recorder about it, and he would tape it to make sure he didn't miss any details.
I wish there was somebody somewhere that would help. I'm still not going to quit. I'm going to keep looking, searching. I'm going to find out somewhere. I've got to find her. It means so much to me.
I lived with him my senior year, and I'd see him come home and sit in his corner, the table with his glass of iced tea, and he'd be talking into his recorder.
It's really getting to us now that we don't know what's happening at the police department. I'm sure that they, whatever information they have, they don't want no one to know. But it's knowing at my insides now, to the point that I'm beginning to feel that the police department of Lincoln City may have dropped the case by now. I don't know why I have this feeling, because they have not talked to me.
Once my mother trusted me enough to give me possession of this stuff, and I started.
You know, I don't know what's wrong with the police department just saying, we don't know. We don't have a clue. This is all the information we have, and we don't have any leads. Rather than to just sit there and be silent and let the families wonder if you're actually working on their case, if you're lying to them. I mean, can you imagine if social media would have been around to pick up this case back then? It would have been pandemonium and chaos. Well, they'd still be talking about it to this day. Because there's so much incompetence by those small town police departments.
Digging into it. I feel responsible for continuing to not let her murder be in vain, not let her just be forgotten, and not let whoever did this get away with it. I feel it's my responsibility, and it's the responsibility of our family to continue to get answers and justice for her. It would be easy just to put this behind us and move on and just let it lie. My grandmother did what she could. And then my mom, she still runs the ad every year on Kitty's birthday, Galveston Daily News. It's been running it for 40 years.
Wow.
To honor her on her birthday every year.
Boy, if I had enough money to rent a billboard here in League City and put her picture, a big picture up there, to help, I'm sure that would do a lot of good.
I can't stop hoping. But I feel like, I won't let it go. Grandfather's still looking at me. And he's counting on us. He didn't do all that work for us to throw it in a closet and go, oh, well, it is what it is. She was my Aunt Hedie. She was his baby girl. She was a mother. She was a sister. She was an aunt. But mostly she was a daughter. And she was a beautiful light.
I feel as though we've got a serial killer out here.
This 1993 affidavit from the League City Police Department supports Tim Miller's claim. It says Laura Miller and the 3 others were killed by a serial sexual offender. Supported by an FBI profile and testimony from 2 former wives, police said the killer was Robert William Abel.
Back in this area here is the site of the Laura Miller discovery.
This is Robert Abel. Nearly 4 years after the accusation, he continues to live in League City. He continues to own the land where the 4 bodies were found.
Their idea was that I would have bought this property so I could come back to the sites where these bodies were located and gloat over the success of a murder.
Charges were never filed, and to this day, Abel says he's innocent.
Are you responsible for the 4 bodies that were found on this property?
Absolutely not. And you know, another thing that really
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
After a search of his home and a lengthy investigation, Abel was never charged. But 4 years later, League City police say he remains a suspect.
They basically said you did it.
That's right.
They basically said you were responsible for the 4 murders.
That's right. They did. And, you know, you say, well, where'd I go wrong?
There wasn't Stardust Trail rides when Keely was found. There wasn't Stardust Trails yet when Laura and Audrey were found. He was actually in the process of building it and turning it into Stardust Trail rides.
So when did he become a suspect?
He became a suspect after Donna's body was found, because they said, well, his people found it and he's been out here and this, that, and the other. And I talked to Robert in detail about that day that the body was found. And then I actually got a copy of the search warrant on Robert's house and why they was going to search the house and when he bought the house, when he bought the property. Well, now it was kind of making a little bit of sense. Well, God, maybe it is this Robert Abel. And now I became obsessed over that again. Now there's new emotions.
Wait, but you put a gun to that man's head.
I put a gun to that guy's head. I did. That alcohol's wonderful things. Yeah, and I told him, I said, Robert, I don't want you dead. I said, because if you're dead, we're never going to know who these other girls are. And I said, I'll remind you every day the rest of your life and what you did. I made his life miserable. I still carry some guilt about that. I do. I was responsible also for making his life a little bit miserable. But I remember that day that I seen him in Lake City. I pulled up beside him, asked him to pull over. And it's a pretty sad day. And he pulled over and I got out of my truck and he got out of his and I just hugged his neck.
When was this?
This was just a few months before he killed himself. And I said, Robert, I said, if there's any way you could ever find it in your heart to forgive me for what I've done to you. And I said, I would understand if you didn't. I said, but I'm so very, very sorry. And I hugged him and he cried and I cried. And he said, Mr. Miller, don't let that police department destroy your life like they've destroyed mine. I'll never, ever forget those words coming out of Robert Abel's mouth. Like 3 months later, he killed himself.
All right, Tim, where are we?
Well, right now we're right here at this four-way stop sign at the house that we lived in back at that time.
So Laura used to walk up and down this street.
Laura walked up and down the street all the time. There's a little cemetery right here at Dickinson, Iowa. She used to hang out at that cemetery. That was kind of a little peaceful place for her.
How close was Clyde to you?
It's only 2 houses in between our house and Clyde's house.
And you didn't know that at the time?
I didn't know that at the time. And very, very, very early on, right after Laura's body was found, Clyde's name was brought up. And then Vernon, which was Laura's boyfriend at the time, said that they would walk from here to the cemetery and stuff. And this guy would whistle all the time and everything. And one time they stopped and this guy was actually talking to Laura, and Vern just felt uneasy about it and walked off and left.
I just had a call to let you know that Galveston County come swatting my house this morning, and I'm over here in Galveston County Jail for that Collar Road stuff with all them dead girls.
There is a part 3, but we're getting kind of short on time. I did find the gas station. I told you I would. Let me show you. This is the gas station, supposedly, that the 2 girls that first were found. Obviously, they've torn it down, but this is the gas station that they went and used the payphone at. West Main Street. And if you come up here, I didn't realize this till a while ago. One of these streets turns into Calder Drive. There is Hobbs Road right here. Gas station was right here. This is the Hobbs Road that they were talking about. And it goes all the way down here. Go on to Irwin. And here's Calder Road. Fields. So it's fairly close. Fairly close. What do you think about this, guys? You think it was the horse stable guy, or do you think that it was the guy that was whistling at the girl very early on? What's your thoughts on this? I enjoy doing different cases because it gives you a sense of freedom that you don't have in those other cases that are currently being talked about every day online. It seems like people just talk the same old talk every day, asking the same question every day. This guy, he spent his life searching for her killer, and he's still alive. But he's also done good in other cases, finding missing people, finding bodies. Texas EquiSearch. So I hope that you enjoyed that. like I said, hopefully this next weekend or this coming weekend, since we do have a holiday on Monday, I might head down to that area and do stream from that area and give you guys a boots on the ground kind of live, where you can actually see the original places. I will have my GoPro. It comes in tomorrow, so hopefully I'll be proficient enough to use that at that point, so that I can use it and give you the best footage. I really enjoyed this case. I mean, I really am intrigued by it because true crime is such a interesting animal. When you're really talking about criminal activity, and when you get into the breakdown of the bodies and the possibility of the killings, how they were killed, the process of investigation, all the stuff that some other channels have done as well. It's interesting to watch. It's interesting to listen to people that know exactly what they're talking about. I've heard Truth Exposed on Detective John's channel. They've done a lot of breakdowns on cases and stuff like that, and she's very knowledgeable on some things, and it's always intriguing to learn from people, because we don't know it all. I'll be the first to tell you, this whole avenue that I'm going down is completely uncharted territory for me. So it makes it kind of scary, because I don't want to mess up what I'm talking about. But at the same time, I want to give the most thorough explanation that I can feasibly comprehend in my own brain. You know what I mean? When it comes to those other cases, I believe that YouTube, the reason why people don't really talk about cases in the true crime community to the extent that they should or could, is lack of understanding of the criminal either mindset or the inability to understand the criminal evidence gathering, processing, forensics, the mindset of a killer, things like that. And when you don't have that understanding, it's easier just to sit there and ask questions. I don't feel comfortable just asking questions with no answers. You know what I mean? I do applaud this dad for being able to give interviews for his daughter and also never giving up, as well as the other family members. Never giving up. Because I would hope that if you ever went missing or if something ever happened to you tragically, that you'd have someone in your life that never gave up in trying to find the answers for you, to give you final peace, instead of continual speculation of who did it, why it was done, trying to piece every little namesake to make it mean what you think it might be. It's like every week it's a different rumor. Every week. I can't wait for the trial in the Idaho 4 case. Well, I appreciate that, Pebbles. I appreciate that. I can't wait to that trial to actually happen so that we can finally put it to rest. And then I wonder what YouTube's going to be like after the trial is finally put to rest, after the 3 months of the trial, what people are really going to talk about then. Is it going to be a year's worth of conversation on the inadequacy of the defense, the inadequacy of the prosecution? It's very interesting to find out exactly what's going to find out. on this trial and what direction it's actually going to go. Until then, and until I play part 3, y'all have a very safe evening. Hold your loved ones close. And try to remember, life is really fragile. No matter what people want you to think, there is evil out there in this world. And sometimes all it has to do is just rub against you and touch you. And you might not even know that you're rubbing against somebody that could potentially be dangerous and kill you. So be always aware of your surroundings. Be mindful, be proactive, and take care of your loved ones and hold them close. I'm going to ask you one time before I leave. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? If not, you need to get a bigger shovel. Maestro, cue that music. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Good night.